Former President Barack Obama speaking just a few moments ago at a rally in Milwaukee. He did not specifically mention this incident or President Trump, but did talk about civility. Watch.
I'm hoping you think it's wrong to hear people spend years, months, vilifying people, questioning their patriotism, calling them enemies of the people. And then suddenly you're concerned about civility. We can have disagreements, but there has to be a certain code. There has to be certain rules in terms of how we treat each other and operate in the public sphere.
Well, that seems interesting since it was just a week or so ago that Hillary Clinton said there shouldn't be civility, basically, right now, Pam. And it's rich because Maxine Waters is among the critics, and she said in the last 24 hours that the president is promoting violence when, as I remember it, she was saying, don't let the cabinet rest. Don't let them eat a meal at a restaurant. Let's go after them.
Go after supporters of President Trump, and that's exactly what happened to me. I was in a movie theater, and it was the Maxine Waters rhetoric. These people were verbatim repeating the Maxine Waters talking points, screaming in my face, stopping me. Then after it happened to me, after it happened to Sarah Sanders, after it happened to Kirsten Nielsen, she doubled down. She said it again. And now for Maxine Waters to continue and blame it on the president is disgraceful. The first thing President Trump did was come out and condemn these actions.
Oh, come on. You know what? This is unbelievable. Even in the middle of the night, last night, President Trump is tweeting out that the press is the one to blame. It's unbelievable. But here's the thing.
And you think
the president is not. What?
President's not to blame.
No, I was about to say, I don't think the president can be directly blamed, but you can't ignore his rhetoric. I'm amazed to hear people who earlier in the week were talking about this is a false flag operation. It's really the Democrats. And I'm talking about prominent Republican voices, Ann Coulter, Rush Limbaugh, Michael Savage, going on in this way. And now it's, oh, don't pay attention to the president's rhetoric, even though he says Hillary Clinton's evil. The Second Amendment people, the gun folks, can take care of Hillary. Barack Obama was tapping me. He's a liar. All of this horrible stuff. We're not accustomed to it in American life. Dana worked in the White House. Ed, you've covered several presidents. You understand that this kind of rhetoric from the president is different than anyone else in the world speaking. He has made a habit of demeaning and dehumanizing his political opponents.
Juan, you had a chyron on CNN yesterday saying the president will not take responsibility for essentially inciting a bomber. There's no evidence that he incited anyone, Greg.
Oh, no. What about that van, Ed?
I can't.
Did that incite it?
Oh, I think it's clear that his passions were aimed specifically at the targets of Trump's rhetoric.
All right, let Greg in.
Well, it's very hard to take lectures from Democrats about civility. Let's take the long view back, okay? Let's look at decades. Let's look at the last 2 years, which you've called the president Hitler, you've called him racist, you've said he's clinically insane, morally unfit. That's just 2 years, within 2 years. Right. But who has been stoking anger for decades? Who's claimed that the political is personal, meaning they could invade your life. I don't want lectures from people who pardoned the FALN, a terrorist group, who justified the murder of police officers, who allowed them to flee, killers to flee. They said nothing about Assassination Theater in Central Park. They said nothing about the assassination revenge fantasy in the New York Times. They said nothing about Kathy Griffin. They said nothing about Johnny Depp, Madonna, Snoop Dogg. What else did they do? They fundraised with Bill Ayers. He was an actual terrorist. His co-terrorists blew themselves up. I don't want lectures from these people about civility. They can shove it up their tush. I'm sorry if that's heated rhetoric.
It is heated rhetoric. And
shove it up your tush?
Wrong.
No, I thought that was very civil.
I thought that was
tush was a better word than the word I wanted to use.
You know what? I mean, in the reality
I wrote a book.
Wait.
I wrote a book called Joy of Hate 5 years ago, where I talked about this phenomenon of demonization by activists and politicians. I warned this would happen. I wrote 13 chapters on this. We talked about it on this show. So I can't take a lecture from people who ignored me about this concern.
Right, well, I'm just saying that if you look at Charlottesville, if you look at Pizzagate, there's a real
Those are the ones you always bring up, Juan.
No.
I can bring up 50.
Always bring them up because I think that's the reality, and it's as opposed to
in
saying,
your filtered
somebody interrupted me. Somebody said you should confront officials. Somebody said
you're not condemning what Maxine Waters said and did, and then said it again and again.
Let me just tell you something. We were out in where were we? We were in Dallas earlier this week. Guy comes up to me, big Trump guy, right? He wants an autograph and a picture. What does he say to me? He says, I'm one of your trolls. I I'm attacking you in your new book and all this stuff, and then calls me a vile name, and then asks for a selfie. This is not normal behavior.
That's awful.
To be fair, that was Kilmeade.
But that doesn't mean the president is inciting people, Dana. It doesn't?
Well, here's the thing. I started going back to June 2015, right? Like when this campaign got started, I was super uncomfortable with the rhetoric, always have been. A lot of people said to me that one of the reasons that President Bush's approval ratings were not what they could have been is because I didn't fight back hard enough with language that would have been tougher. And it just wasn't in my nature. That's just not how I'm doing it. Everybody running for office right now could admit, and they do admit, that the rhetoric is too heated. So everyone has a personal responsibility. Civility is a choice. Every time you open your mouth, you can decide what you want to say.
But Dana, you can't be lectured by them about civility.
I don't feel lectured by anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I don't.
You know how the left is treated conservatives.
I know what they said about President Bush. I believe, and
what they've said about women,
Romney.
Conservative women.
Well, God, that's a whole list. Like, we could go on. This show would never end if we talked about, if we point by point, but you said that, and then he said that, and she said that, and he said that. It would never end. Last week there was a poll, NBC said 90% of people in America agree that we are too divided right now.
All right.
If 90% of us agree on that, we should be able to actually decide to do something about it.
But hang on one second.
Read Steve Scalise's editorial op-ed. It's great.
We just got some new video of the suspect down in Florida. This is new video that's just coming into our newsroom. So you can obviously see him being let in. He's handcuffed, of course. We had seen the mugshot earlier today, but this is our first video actually seeing the suspect briefly there as he's taken further into custody. But Juan, I wonder, you've got Joe Biden, the former vice president, thinking about running for president. Okay. He said, among other things this week, that he thinks we should lower the temperature. I covered the 2012 campaign. And among other things, he was speaking to a mostly black audience, I remember, and he said that Mitt Romney was going to put you all back in chains. How did that lower the temperature?
No, I think that's heated rhetoric, but it's nowhere near
But to Greg's point,
violence.
why is Joe Biden lecturing Donald Trump?
Nobody's lecturing. Everybody's.
Yes, he is.
I don't think so. I think what people are saying is that we are incredibly divided as a country, and we have a president, a leader, who indulges in the kind of demeaning, dehumanizing rhetoric that is damaging to our ability to hear each other, to talk to each other. Instead, we get locked into what Greg was just doing, whataboutism. Well, you did this.
You've been doing that forever, whataboutism. That's kind of
also,
ironic.
I think that it's important to say that violence is not, speech is not violence. And we have to be able to separate that. Like, we have a First Amendment in this country for a reason. You might not like the rhetoric, but there are people on the fringe that might react to certain things from the left or the right. And we know that happened to Steve Scalise.
Yeah.
But nobody said that Bernie Sanders is to blame for that.
Or
MSNBC.
MSNBC.
I see this as the same.
You know what's interesting is somebody said, like, oh, it only takes one crackpot, right?
Yeah.
So are we going to change the way we are, a 330 million population, to do the favor for one crackpot? We better look. And the other point is, everybody's lying about civil discourse. The people that are saying we need to tone it, they are lying. I believe you, Juan. I think you feel that way, but I don't think the Democrats, the moment they get a chance to screw you from behind, they will. They do that politically. They will say horrible things about you during campaigns. At least Trump does it to your face. That's the most transparent insult you will ever get. Comes from him. Isn't that healthier?
Greg, what do you think, though, about all these conspiracy theories, these false flag theories coming from leading conservative voices this week?
It's foolish.
Okay.
All right.
All right, we agree.
Meanwhile.
I disagree.